Hi, Doug Hazelman back here again. I want to talk about Veeam Endpoint Backup free. Slide says it all. Endpoint backup must be free and simple, or simple and free. I know there's going to be a lot of questions, but from a history of Veeam, and many of you may remember this, we started with a free product. Veeam was launched with a free product called Fast SCP. Solved a common issue that at the time vSphere administrators were having about manipulating large files. How do I get an ISO from one data store to another? How do I get VMDKs? All these large files. Fast SCP downloaded over 250,000 times. Helped us get started.
Still using it on a daily basis.
Yeah, some people. And the interesting thing was, I said we launched is a free product. That's what started Veeam. And what it allowed us to do is get it in the hands of the customers and get feedback. Right? Well, what other kind of issues are you having? Right? Here's a tool to help you solve this need. What other needs do you have? That led to Veeam Monitor, Veeam Reporter, which are now are part of Veeam 1, and then finally Veeam Backup and Replication. And we still have a Veeam Backup free edition. Fast SCP is still kind of buried in there. It's not necessarily as useful as it once was because of the advancements in vSphere and those types of things, but it's still there. It's still free. So from a history of providing free products, getting feedback, understanding what to do next, where to take it, that's the idea. And that's the same idea behind Veeam Endpoint Backup Free. So while we talk about the modern data center that's built on virtualization, modern storage, and cloud, part of that will pretty much always remain physical except for VDI environments is desktops and laptops. Right? So you still need a way to back up these endpoints. And that's the general idea behind Veeam Endpoint Backup Free. It is a 1.0 release, so it doesn't do everything. It doesn't do Mac, it doesn't do iPads, it doesn't do phones. It does Windows. So Windows 7 and above, as well as Windows Server 2008 and above. Yes, I did say server. So we are positioning this as an endpoint backup for desktops and laptops. But it can also be used for a few remaining physical Windows servers. The reason I say few remaining is it's not built into the management interface of Veeam Backup and Replication. Veeam Backup and Replication is not required. This is a completely separate standalone product. With that being said, we do have integration with Veeam Backup and Replication. So when you set up Endpoint, when you're walking through it on your laptop, you choose where you want to store the backup. Now you can store it on a local volume, on a USB drive, on a NAS share, or on a Veeam Backup repository.
Do you address that from the proxy? You select a proxy?
No, you select within the you configure it on your desktop, and there's an option where you can type in the name of the Veeam server given to you by the administrator. It'll show the available proxies you can write to, and then you can store it on that repository. I'm sorry, not proxy. You then store it on that repository. So if you have
are you writing, because to this question, are you writing your data from your laptop to the Veeam server, or is Veeam server going to give you a proxy to write to that repository?
No, we're writing it to the repository. The right path is to the repository.
Yeah. The endpoint is the proxy in Veeam Talk.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's compute and there's connectivity, so therefore it is the proxy of sorts.
And when it's on the repository, you can also do a backup job, a copy job, sorry, from this inside Veeam Backup and Application. You can do.
Yeah. So if you have an endpoint that's writing to a Veeam Backup repository, it's in the standard format. Retention policies, everything, VBK, VIB. You can do backup copy jobs, copy it to the cloud. You can copy it to another repository, those types of things. And then you can also do all the restores.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah. So
you tell me I can restore that to a VM?
You can't do bare metal to a VM. You can do file level recovery, right? Volume level. You can do all the standard granular recovery options we have.
The recovery needs to happen again inside the endpoint.
Correct.
The endpoint that's going to drive.
You don't do the restore using the Veeam console.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Correct. So from a bare metal standpoint, does have to be. You have to initiate it from the endpoint to do a bare metal, but you can read it from the repository over the network, if you so desire. And then, of course, from the endpoint, you can also initiate a file level recovery. So, right from, say, I lost that file or I need to get that directory back, you can go in and do file level recovery right from the, go down, and we're going to do a demo here in a few minutes, right? Yes, to show that capability. Questions, comments?
I was going to say, normally I say when and how much, but we know how much.
Yeah, yeah. So how much is free? So what we're going to do is we're going to start a beta in probably about a month or so. It'll be a public beta. So once that's launched, you'll be able to download it and start trying it out. We're actually doing alpha testing right now internally with our pre-sales engineers. Testing things out like different types of endpoints. Like I've got a Surface, and other people have this, and I've already provided some feedback and sent some log files. So the alpha I think is going good. And then we'll do a beta, and then we're looking at general availability sometime early next year, so early 2015.
What's the long-term vision for it? Is it eventually going to be collapsed into backup and recovery?
Is that even a question?
No, it is. It's an excellent question. It's one of the first. Yeah, it's one of the first questions we get. It's like,
Start charging us for it is the next question.
well, correct. Yeah, it's like, well, okay, Veeam, you're putting out this product free, right? So again, point back to Fast SCP. We never charge for Fast SCP. We still don't charge for it today, right? There will always be a free version of endpoint backup. Now, we may take the technology and the feedback that we get, as part of this, and create a product that we do ask money for, right? We may add additional features to it that we ask money for, but there will always be a free version of endpoint. And a couple of areas, that I think are of interest right now, especially for Veeam, is in the service provider area. And, specifically for service providers that manage a lot of customers, maybe small customers that aren't 100% virtualized or have a lot of endpoints, having a capability like this is important for them. So so there's some different areas that we're looking at. We have some thoughts, but this first release is just let's get it out there, let's get it into your hands, and get that feedback, get that understanding, and see where we can take the product from there.
Quick question for notebooks. One of the classic problems is obviously the machine's asleep if I'm not using it. I come into the office. Is it dynamically based on availability of the destination? Is that what's the cycle there? I can't say back me up at 10 o'clock at night because my portable's in its bag at home, hopefully.
It's your notebook that does the backup.
Exactly, but that means it has to be on and the server has to be available. If I'm wandering around, my server's not available.
Yep. So there's multiple options. When you set up, you can set up a schedule and say, to run when it's normally turned on and a drive is connected to it or the network is available. You can also set it, I have this setting on mine, is you can tell it to back up every time you lock it. So every time I hit Windows L, it locks my machine, and as long as my USB drive is connected, it'll create a backup. So it's kind of a mindless way. You can also do it on log off or shutdown. So there's different ways you can configure when to trigger the actual backup. And again, using Veeam technology, we'll just do the incremental at that point. So like right now, my machine's locked, but my USB drive isn't connected. So I'll see a failed because the backup device wasn't ready.
When you say incremental, is there one of the types of incremental, or can you choose the different types of incremental you have?
Right now, you can't choose the.
Is it forward incremental? Can you do it? So it's not reverse incremental, right?
We are not doing the reverse incremental.
Yeah, because that's gonna.
Yeah, it requires much more I/O.
Yeah.
To do it, so.
And what kind of targets does it support? You talked about not having your
Local
USB
disk,
drive plugged in.
network drive.
Any local disk that can be inside the machine or a USB connected drive, an S share via SMB, or a Veeam repository.
But it can't be its own. It can't be the same volume that you're backing up.
And what about the mobile user? When you are outside the office, your backup is not possible, but through VPN, maybe you can do again. It's just IP connectivity that you need. So there is some network throttling or.
Again, from an enterprise perspective, right, and trying to deploy this on multiples, that's not the goal of this first release, right? This first release is more for, IT pros.
IT pros and point solutions for that last Windows server that I've got that I can't get rid of.
So, but like what you talked about, that idea of, you've got a remote user and you want to store the backup centrally, how do you do that? Does it do it locally and then
Can be also
at
the
some point
cloud
upload it?
version, because if you
Yes.
are outside, you have a provider.
Yeah. So I mean, these are the kinds of feedbacks and thoughts that we'll look into. We've already had some thoughts around Cloud Connect and how would you do this with Cloud Connect, right? Because as long as I've got the SSL connection out to the web, then essentially, in theory, I could, I lock my laptop and it's going to back up to a Cloud Connect repository in the cloud.
Place your, yeah.
That seems like the best idea. That seems like the future.
That way you don't have to worry about the VPN and those types of things, encrypt it. That's not in this release. That's just, again, we're just thinking here, right? So
It's an opportunity for this customer that won't make a backup of the physical server, no? Because
if you have a few remaining physical servers,
You said that was 2008?
2008 and above, so 2003 upgrade.
Yeah, that's rats.
Out of license anyway.
It's going to end of life anyways.
Yeah, 2003 is end of life. But yeah, so if you have a couple of remaining physical servers, you can use it. Again, you have to configure it on each server. So if you have
We say
a few.
because you have the option of post-install the script or something to execute before or after the.
I don't think we have post and pre and post scripts.
and it's not
with them.
coming in an MSI format.
Correct.
So
It does on Windows. It does do a standard VSS at the operating system level, so it does a VSS quiescence, but it doesn't. It's not going to do Veeam standard application aware, so it's not going to do log file pruning and those types of things. But you will get a VSS backup of that server, and you can tell it to store it on the Veeam repository. So, for a few remaining physical servers, it'll work.
Except for log truncation, VSS on a local server should kick off Exchange and so well.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
only issues we have with VSS and Exchange and SQL is on a virtualized environment where the latencies of that VSS is
snapshot.
great. On a local server, you won't have issues with VSS. The only thing you don't have is log truncation. That's all.
Yeah.
What if I want to do a bare metal restore to a different hardware? Is there going to be a possibility to inject another driver?
Yes. Yep. Yep.
one of the options that Endpoint has is to create a bootable drive. We create for you a USB stick with all the driver preloaded and a boot environment. So the only thing you need is this bootable drive and a copy of backup.
Can you ingest drivers in that then?
Is Veeam PA?
Usually, no.
No.
It's the other one. I don't remember the name. The new one.
PE.
Yep.
Reboot.
From your machine, we basically extract all the driver of the actual machine where you are. So we don't have to build a huge boot environment.
I'll show
but
you.
We design.
I'll show it to you.
Yep.
Okay.
Because it's kind of the pieces that we have that we can show are in it.
Yep. But you can also do a bare metal restore on a different machine.
Yeah. And you can inject drivers
Okay.
and even access wireless.
Hi everyone, I'm Rick Vanover again back here, and we're going to do a quick look at Veeam Endpoint Backup. Now, as Doug explained, it's an endpoint solution, so it's made for the target use case, the IT Pro, PCs, notebooks, laptops, capable tablets, etc. I've installed this. It's been running for nearly a week, okay? And this is the console. Quick look here, if I hover over, last backup was successful, right? So very simple information for me, not much to know. If I go into that console here, this is what I'll see. I can launch a backup now. But the notion of this backup option really is what we would call a job. So I'm going to just walk through that wizard real quick. And it will tell me the basic options. Now, I like to say that the backup here, we have to get the data mover, right? We have to draw that first arrow right. And then to all the great ideas we were just talking about, this is where it starts. So I have three options on what I'm going to back up. The entire computer, one or more volumes, or just files, okay? So I'm going to go all in. I'm going to take the entire computer for this sample backup job. And then we're talking about the supported destinations. The three supported destinations in this alpha release include local drives, so drive letters. That would include the removable media, shared folder. Now in this case, I am going to a shared folder. This is one of the 8 installs that we were showing over here at VMworld. This particular target is deduplicated, so I should actually go look and see how they did, right? Because they were all very similar. And then that third option is the Veeam backup and replication repository.
Rick, what happens if you choose local drive and you've chosen entire system, so entire computer? Is it going to skip that local drive because it has to write there?
No, it's actually right here in the UI. It says backup to local hard drives is not recommended. So there's
External drive.
Or
If you have multiple hard
No, I
drives.
mean, I have a USB
Already plugged
connected
in.
disk here,
Yeah.
but if I choose entire computer, it still shows up as drive D. Is it gonna?
It'll skip that one.
It'll skip that one. Okay.
Yeah.
So the shared folders where I'm going. The logic here is, well, first of all, we're talking potentially to a different type of customer. You think of the VMware or Hyper-V.
Of what Hans said.
Yeah.
What about when you do it to a shared folder?
That's what I'm doing.
Will it skip that drive then also, or will it?
Oh, yeah, it's only talking to local data.
Yeah, it's by default, it's not going to include removable drives. If you want to include the removable drive, if you go to volume backup, then you can select all the volumes you want to back up. So, including the removable media.
How do you know the difference between
They're classified as fixed local disk or removable.
having multiple volumes on one local drive or that disk D that is a USB drive?
They're fixed
Or removable.
either icons. The Windows just knows that they're
If
removable.
you go into Disk Manager, right?
Yeah.
Even if you have multiple volumes on a local drive, you can see all the volumes.
So like right here, I guess I can inject the C drive. I don't want to try that, but Windows should know what is what, which is another reason why we're going to have a good, healthy beta to get these kind of scenarios. I'm going to a shared folder. This particular one is deduplicated storage. If I needed creds, I could drop them in. I do not.
That's for the remote share.
Right, for the remote share. And I'm going to keep 14 days of backups. So while I'm here, I'm going to copy that URL, or that UNC. And if I look on disk, I actually have all 8 of them from over there that are running. Okay, and they all should be slightly different, about the same amount of time, full backup, some change rate, full backup, which is bigger, by the way. The other one started with a 7, some change rate. So I have some insight to the drive patterns here, and I have them all on disk. And then I dropped the schedule, and Doug had mentioned some of these at lock, which is one of the mechanisms he's doing, or at log off. Now, I like this one, create backup no more often than every 2 hours. So if you log off...
If you lock your computer every time you walk away
Yeah.
to have coffee,
Yeah, you're not going to have a million transactions.
Right. Because, and this is also an interesting interpreter here. If any of you are familiar with the Veeam kind of logic with the way the job iterates, that's what we would call a restore point. This says 14 days. So it's very possible you could go 2 weeks but have more than 14 restore points if you lock, but then no more than every 2 hours. So it's actually a simple, straightforward wizard with a lot of pretty powerful restore options. And that's really the wizard. But what's cool are some of the other settings that can come in. One of them is disable the scheduled backups, meaning only do them on demand. Kind of a cool idea. But again, in terms of safeguarding, it's not on by default. Disable notifications, I'm not a fan of that, which is another one. I like this one, backup I/O control. Don't even try if we're busy, okay? Kind of makes sense. You don't want the endpoint experience to suffer. This isn't coming in at the infrastructure level where we can do things that won't necessarily impact the VM, but this will, of course. And then on the graph there, I'm going to show duration or size, and I'm going to flip the graph here, and it should speak into change rate geometry here, and there it is. There's a mechanism here eventually to pull updates. This is 1.0.0. I'm ready to go. And then there's kind of a very straightforward use case. Again, this is a different type of user, and therefore the interface needs to match it.
But the other thing too, just before you ask, or even if you don't, on the support side, right? It's essentially email support, and it's as we can get to it priority. We will support it, but it's not going to be #1 priority. We put our paid customers first.
Only if you yell at Twitter. It always helps.
No,
Ricketron will step in.
Hey now. Now, this is station number 8, and somebody has already gone through the wizard to create the media that we were talking about. because there's actually a wizard that steps up here and says, hey, you have not created yet your recovery media. So from there, I don't have here, but I could do some stuff to make my recovery media here. And I would do all of that in a wizard. And it has to be easy to use. You know, I kind of had a joke that I can't wait to install this on my mom's computer. Or, you know, all of us do kind of that personal network help. Now, granted, that's expanding to phones and other things, but kind of where they put their pictures and stuff like that, right? This would be a great way to protect that kind of stuff. So very simple, very easy to use. And from the restore standpoint, would you like me to do a restore? Yeah, I've only done it once, and the first time I did it was a live webinar.
Rick,
So,
I've got just a quick question.
Yeah.
At what point is the deduplication done? Is it done at the target? Do you have to have a target that does deduplication?
no, you don't. There is storage efficiency on the backup. So when I do these backups here, I wish I could, let me see if I can find the actual iteration here. And it's done right here. It's one single instance, so there's not going to be much dedupe. It's only if our processing engine really gets a compression hit. That's unless you have a data profile that is ready for dedupe. But Windows by itself, one Windows, doesn't really bring much dedupe.
Yeah, so it's kind of like with the normal Veeam, we have dedupe within a job, but not cross jobs. So this is a single job.
Similar principle.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, for me, if I was to lash this on the laptop at some point, when you get cloud integration so I can put it up to Amazon or wherever, I don't want to then start chewing through a bunch of storage on there if I've got a ton of photos here. Would the job be clever enough to say, oh, they already exist at the target?
Yeah.
Just put changes on.
I don't know about the target, but we use forever incremental technology. So as long as you're not changing those existing
Yeah.
photos, then we'll
blocks
never
won't come
necessarily
over.
back them up
Right.
again. But
Sure.
in terms of retention policies and those types of things, and whether we do that rebuild in the cloud or we do it locally and then transfer it, those are some advanced features that on this side I don't think we have worked out yet because it's
But
not a standard Veeam repository.
But it's an initial full backup and then it's incrementals from then on.
Yeah. But we do periodically, we do a transform still.
Yeah, they're
I
pruning.
would believe we would do the synthesized
Oh,
IO.
yeah, because
Oh,
you
yeah,
want
but
14
synthetic
days
one,
of
yeah.
retention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In block level, file level?
Volume. Well, if you do entire computer, we're doing it at the volume level. And if you saw the log, it actually said change block tracking. So we're definitely looking. Let me see if I can bring that up. We definitely are looking at the volume. And sorry about the screen weirdness going on. No, it's the target here. But basically, you'll see we're moving it at 1 megabits per second, which is not megabyte per second, which isn't exactly the fastest, but we do classify that incremental backup of this PC moved 800 meg of change blocks at a volume level. And then on target, we synthesize that as needed to keep one full backup and then a chain of incrementals available. Let's break something. We're right at the end. I'm going to delete the write.exe file from the Windows directory. Oh, well, maybe that's a bad example. Let's delete the hh.help file. See if I can do that.
Question as well
Yeah.
then. So when you synthesize that full backup, let's say on day 14, 15, whatever, the legwork obviously to create that synthetic full is done here locally, obviously then, yeah? On the
From a
laptop.
compute standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then on target, there's
The
IO
manipulation.
manipulation. Yeah. Let's break something else. Let's delete the Station 8 profile. If you want to see a restore, we'll just finish up with that real quick. Station 8, they have, let's delete their My Documents folder. There's nothing in it, but let's just delete the Station 8 user folder, their documents. So I'm going to go launch a very easy restore individual files, and it's going to launch this file level restore wizard. Those who have used, some of the backups before, and by the way, here's the full restore point and the forward link of incrementals. I'm going to find that time, most recent is good, and I'm going to pull back the My Documents folder. Pretty straightforward way to do it, and it's easy to do. It's going to crack open the file system here from what we backed up. And Doug had alluded at the fact that we're going to have some of the application support, and it's actually launched inside of here, and hopefully these icons paint up correctly. But basically, Veeam Explorer for Exchange, Active Directory, SQL, and Explorer all have free capabilities. And it all starts with that first arrow, right, that data mover. And when they go into the backup format, then we can actually launch those restore scenarios. And once this cracks open, I will show you.
Which kind of infrastructure is needed? All is on the endpoint, and you just need storage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a home NAS.
So there
removable-
isn't a server for endpoint.
Yeah, I use a server because I have a server.
Yeah,
I use a
I
DDoS
mean a
appliance
central
because I have.
server
Yeah.
to
No, it's endpoint. So there's no like central management.
and if you want to restore an endpoint that you haven't prepared for the live CD from another endpoint, how you can handle it in this way? If
So-
you have lose your endpoint,
Lose your media.
Yeah.
Lose that media.
Well, we lost that Surface. They gave me a brand new one.
Yeah.
And-
How do I connect to my existing backup data store?
The easiest way would be if you created the media to boot up off of that media,
Yeah.
and
But
then
you can create also from another
Because that also
system.
includes the identity and the path
Okay,
information.
perfect.
I would
Backup
expect
system.
so. Yeah, but definitely you can get the data back. Whether or not it's going to totally bring back the entire experience, if you lose both the device and the media, that's why we have a beta. Okay, so I'm going to put back this restore of the documents file or documents folder from that Station 8 user, and we should see that the documents folder should just pop right in here. So basically, there it is. So their profile was fixed. I broke their profile and I fixed it. So second ever live demo of a restore, and it says that it went okay.
I reckon
who
it's
got the
going to
first
write.
one?
Sorry.
No, go
Go
on.
on, Nigel.
Who got the first live demo?
I did a webinar. But that wraps up this quick demo. And thank you, everyone, for watching this quick demo of Endpoint. Back up.